Spring 2007. A 24-year-old warehouse worker in Ohio is standing in his kitchen with 4,000 bottle caps spread across the floor. Each cap has a code. Each code is worth points. Each point is worth money. He is not rich. He does not own a company. He works nights loading pallets for $11 an hour, coming home smelling of cardboard and diesel, falling asleep most mornings around 8 a.m. In 4 months, he will walk away with over $50,000 in gift cards, electronics, and cash equivalents from one of the largest beverage companies on earth. He will not steal a single bottle. He will not hack a single server. He will not break a single rule written down anywhere in the terms and conditions. He will simply understand a formula better than the people who wrote it. So how does a warehouse worker turn bottle caps into $50,000? And why did Coca-Cola have to quietly rebuild the entire foundation of its own loyalty program to stop him? His name is Danny Ferris. Nobody at Coca-Cola has ever heard of him. Nobody ever will. Not officially. Not by name. In 2006, Coca-Cola launches My Coke Rewards. Buy a bottle, look under the cap, find a code. Enter the code online. Earn points. Points become gift cards, merchandise, sweepstakes entries, sometimes cash-equivalent prizes. It is designed to build brand loyalty, one purchase at a time. It is designed around a specific customer, someone buying a 6-pack a week, entering 3 or 4 codes a month, slowly accumulating enough points for a t-shirt or a movie ticket. It is not designed for Danny Ferris.
Danny doesn't drink soda. He has never cared about Coca-Cola as a brand, never owned a single piece of branded merchandise. What he cares about is the code itself, the string of characters printed under a plastic cap. The codes are alphanumeric, fixed length, generated by an internal formula. And formulas, Danny has learned from years of tinkering with side projects and low-level scripting, have patterns. Every formula does. The only question is how deep you have to dig to find one. He spends his nights not sleeping, but reading. Programming forums, loyalty program message boards, threads where strangers compare notes on which codes worked, which didn't, which characters never seemed to appear in certain positions. Somewhere in those threads, buried in a forum post from someone who never followed up on it, is the first piece of the puzzle. The codes aren't fully random. Certain positions in the string only ever contain certain characters. Certain combinations never appear at all. It narrows the possibility space from astronomical to merely large. Danny doesn't need to guess every code in existence. He just needs to guess enough of them, fast enough, before anyone notices the pattern being exploited.
Danny starts small. He writes a simple script, nothing sophisticated, that generates code strings following the structural pattern he's pieced together from forum chatter and his own manual trial submissions. Fixed length, known character positions, a checksum-like rule he suspects exists but can't yet confirm. He runs the first batch by hand, typing each guess into the website's entry form himself. 10 guesses. 2 come back invalid, malformed, rejected before they even reach the database. 8 are structurally valid but rejected as never issued. He adjusts the pattern, removes a few character possibilities from positions where he's now certain they never appear. Tries again. This time, 1 code comes back valid, not previously used. 10 points, awarded instantly to his account. It isn't much. 10 points is nothing, but it proves the theory. Somewhere inside Coca-Cola's astronomically large code space, his generated guesses are landing on real, unclaimed codes, purely because the underlying pattern isn't nearly as random as it appears to the average customer squinting at a bottle cap. He can't automate this at real scale, not without triggering rate limits and drawing attention to a single account submitting hundreds of entries an hour. So he does something slower and smarter instead. He builds a rotation. Multiple accounts, registered under different names and email addresses, spread across friends, a cousin, a coworker from the warehouse who owes him a favor and doesn't ask many questions. Each account submits a modest, unremarkable number of guesses per day, well under any threshold that would flag a single account as suspicious.
By June 2007, Danny's accumulated points across his account network are worth roughly $4,000 in redeemable prizes. He cashes some of it out carefully, gift cards to major retailers, a couple of smaller electronics items, nothing that would draw a second look from anyone processing a redemption request. He doesn't stop. He refines his generation pattern further, cross-referencing failed guesses against successful ones, narrowing the character possibilities with every new batch of data. Each refinement increases his hit rate. What started as roughly one valid code in every 10 guesses becomes 1 in 6. Then, by midsummer, 1 in 4. By August, the numbers are no longer small. Across his rotation of accounts, Danny is quietly accumulating points equivalent to tens of thousands of dollars in prizes and gift card value. Then, in late August, something almost goes wrong.
One of his accounts, registered under his cousin's name, gets flagged during a routine internal fraud sweep, not for the code entries themselves, but because the redemption address on file doesn't match the registered billing information tied to the account. It's a minor mismatch, the kind that happens legitimately all the time when people move or use a family member's shipping address, but it's enough to trigger a manual review. Danny finds out when his cousin gets a call, someone from customer support, verifying a recent gift card redemption. He freezes that account immediately. No further entries, no further redemptions. He waits 3 weeks, watching for any sign that the review is expanding outward toward his other accounts. Nothing happens. The flag closes as a routine address mismatch. Resolved, no further action. It's a warning he takes seriously. He tightens his own rules. Shipping addresses that match registration details exactly. No 2 accounts redeeming to the same physical address within the same month. He slows the pace even further, trading speed for invisibility. By September, he has redemptions worth an estimated $35,000 spread across his network. Patient, quiet, and by his own accounting, still growing.
Inside Coca-Cola's promotions division, someone finally notices something strange. Not from a single account behaving badly, that would have been caught months earlier, but from a statistical anomaly surfacing across a cluster of accounts during a quarterly fraud audit. Redemption analysts, reviewing monthly reports, spot a pattern, a disproportionate number of cold codes, codes that had never been scanned as printed inventory anywhere near the retail locations tied to the redeeming accounts, clustered around a set of email addresses sharing overlapping registration patterns, similar IP ranges, similar device fingerprints, similar login windows, always within a few hours of each other, night after night. It isn't proof of anything illegal yet. It's a flag, and flags get escalated.
An internal fraud review is opened. Coca-Cola's promotions team pulls in outside auditors who specialize in loyalty program security, the same class of firms that would later help redesign code generation systems across the entire industry. Run the algorithm again, one auditor tells another, according to internal correspondence later summarized in the review. I want to know if these codes could have been guessed. They rebuild the code generation logic from scratch, testing it against the exact cluster of cold redemptions flagged in the audit. The reconstruction confirms what Danny had already worked out through months of trial and error alone. The code generation pattern had structural predictability baked into it from the very beginning, a legacy of an early formula nobody inside the company had ever stress-tested against a patient, determined individual working alone from a kitchen table. The question inside Coca-Cola isn't whether this happened anymore. It's how much value walked out the door before anyone noticed, and what, if anything, can be done about the person or people responsible.
Coca-Cola faces a decision that companies in this position almost always face. Publicly prosecuting a bottle cap code exploit means publicly admitting the code system was broken for over a year. It means admitting, on the record, that a warehouse worker in Ohio, with no formal training, outmaneuvered a security system built by a multi-billion-dollar corporation's own engineers. Instead, the company moves quietly. Accounts linked to the suspicious redemption cluster are frozen without public explanation. Points are voided. Legal correspondence is sent.
not framed as criminal charges, but as a civil demand to recover the value of goods and gift cards already redeemed. Danny, facing the prospect of a legal fight against a company with effectively unlimited resources and lawyers who do this for a living, doesn't fight it head-on. He negotiates instead, through a lawyer of his own, a friend of a friend who works mostly in small business contracts and has never handled anything like this before. The settlement is quiet, and it splits the difference. Danny returns a portion of the redemptions tied directly to the flagged accounts. He keeps the rest, the portion spread across accounts and redemptions the company's own auditors ultimately can't cleanly separate from ordinary, legitimate promotional activity already blended into the same database. By the time the dust settles in early 2008, Danny walks away having netted somewhere in the neighborhood of $50,000 in value across gift cards, electronics, and cash-equivalent prizes he never has to return. Coca-Cola never releases a public statement. There is no press conference, no lawsuit filed in open court, no headline naming Danny Ferris. The company simply rebuilds its code generation algorithm from the ground up, introducing cryptographically secure randomization designed specifically to make the kind of structural pattern Danny found mathematically impossible to reconstruct through guesswork again. Within the loyalty marketing industry, word spreads quietly among promotions teams and program designers. A key study nobody names publicly, cited for years afterward in vendor pitches selling next-generation reward code security to other companies terrified of becoming the next cautionary tale.
Danny Ferris never became a public figure. There was no magazine profile, no television interview, no viral headline with his name attached to it. He simply went back to his warehouse job for a while. Then, eventually, he didn't need to. He broke no law that anyone could ultimately prove in a courtroom. He found a flaw in a system built by people who assumed nobody would ever look at it the way he did. Patiently, methodically, one small pattern at a time, night after night, long after everyone else had stopped paying attention to a bottle cap. Was he a fraudster who reverse-engineered his way into stolen prizes? Or was he simply the first person patient enough to notice that a multi-billion-dollar company's security assumptions were built on a formula that was never as random as it looked? Coca-Cola rebuilt the system from scratch. Danny kept the money. And somewhere in a promotions department archive that will likely never be made public, his case remains the quiet reason every bottle cap code today is generated by math nobody, no matter how patient, can predict.
If you like these types of videos, be sure to check out our other videos on my channel, and don't forget to subscribe.